What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our SEC football channel.
We'll talk some Ole Miss football. Jake, how you doing today?
Mark, good to see you. It's always good to see you. How you been?
Absolutely. Good to see you as well. Good to see you as well. And I know the record's 1-3, but I think it's been pretty fun for Ole Miss fans to at least watch this football team play. Week 1, a ton of points and scoring on both sides against Florida. Then you get that game against Kentucky. That was a wild one that goes to overtime, and you get a bit fortunate there with the missed PAT. You went step for step with Alabama, which I got to admit surprised me. 48-48 game with about 5-6 minutes left in that one before you go down to the Tide, and we know and see what they did to Georgia. And so then comes this game against Arkansas. Even turning the ball over 7 times, the Rebs are still in the game, but certainly not the game that Matt Corral had turned in the first 3 or 4 games of the season, or the first 3 games of the season against this Arkansas bunch. So where do you size things up beyond the 1-3 record?
Well, you know, Mark, the thing that's tough right now is that through the first 3 games, Ole Miss was exactly where we thought they would be. And realistically, that's where we had hoped, we kind of hoped that the trend that we saw over the first 3 games was going to keep moving. Lane Kiffin came in. He had done a very good job very early on of moving the ball up and down the field. He's moving the ball at light speed compared to some of these defenses. I mean, we saw after the Alabama game, Nick Saban and Dylan Moses were accusing us of stealing signals because the Rebs were moving so fast. And so, over those first couple games, we're headed in a great direction. We're moving the ball. Elijah Moore right now is on pace to absolutely smash the Ole Miss single season record in catches. He's racking in about 10 or 11 a game. And so, the first couple weeks we're feeling good. We go toe-to-toe with Alabama for 57 minutes. That was not supposed to happen in year 1. That was supposed to be a year 2, maybe 3, maybe even year 4 project. And so we're ahead of schedule in our minds, and we feel good. And then last week, just Arkansas seems to always be a trap game for the Rebels. It seems to be a game that we can never just, we can just never go in and beat them if we're the better team. And, it always causes problems for us. One of the things that people talked a lot about this week was, well, Ole Miss is the better team because it took them 7 turnovers to lose the game. Well, it's nice to say that. And realistically, it took the fifth interception was the one that sealed the game for Arkansas. And so at that point, there were already 6 turnovers on the board. And that was when it finally was over for the Rebels. So, that's a positive to take from it. It's a pretty bleak positive. But, when you're still in football games, when you've turned the ball over 6 times, not to say you're doing something right, but there's more to the story there. And so, we're encouraged by it because we think this team can continue to go up and up, especially on the offense. But the best thing we saw last week was the defense. The defense was on pace to be probably the worst defense in college football history through the first 3 games. And then they do a 180 against Arkansas, but sadly the offense doesn't show up.
Got Jake Evans on the line from the Rebel Walk. Please join him and the rest of the staff there covering Ole Miss football. No championship for the Rebels this year, but it's a fun team to watch with Lane Kiffin on the sideline trying to run X's and O's against the SEC defenses. And they'll do so against the Auburn Tigers, and what's been a really good defense. That's not been their problem necessarily much this year. They come off an upset loss against South Carolina on the road. And I would have considered this, even though if I'm remembering my SEC predictions, I did tag this as an Ole Miss upset in the preseason. Auburn would have been a substantial favorite, a month ago. But now we're looking at an Auburn team that's reeling. Ole Miss plays well at home. They're scoring a ton of points. Auburn's having trouble on offense with Bo Nix. This is certainly a winnable game.
It is. And the thing is looking at Ole Miss's schedule now. After the Alabama game, a lot of Ole Miss fans looked at their schedule and thought we should not lose another game this year. Based on what we've seen through the first 3 weeks, we thought that there's nobody on our schedule that can outscore us. Almost every single team on the schedule has a much better defense than us right now, but we think that we can outscore most of the teams we've got. And this is one of the games that's been circled on the calendar because, every year in the SEC, if you're going to make any kind of noise and if you're going to take any positive momentum to the next year, you can't just beat Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and Mississippi State. You have to beat an Auburn. You have to compete with a Bama team. You have to, you have to beat a Kentucky this year. So it's games like this that are kind of the ones where you're not supposed to win it, but you really need to. It'd be a huge momentum boost for the program. You know, right now, like we said, Ole Miss is only 1-3. Kentucky's not going to be that signature win this year, and I think anybody who says that's the signature win is crazy. This game right here is one that Ole Miss needs to go get. You know, Auburn right now looks about as weak as they might look. I would hate to give them a couple more weeks to you know, kind of get their footing and maybe work out some of these issues. And so I think the Rebs are catching them at a good time. I think Bo Nix is shaky, and I think that's good because obviously Matt Corral was a little shaky. And so, you know, I think we're catching them at a good time. I think that Ole Miss's defense is going to have a big task on their hands this week because they saw last week the way that you beat Bo Nix is you get to him and you make him run around, you make him get out of the pocket. He loses his mechanics. He throws the ball around, throws it across his body. He doesn't play smart football all the time when he moves. And so the goal for the Rebels this week is going to be to get pressure to him. The first couple weeks of the season, the Rebels were not able to do that. And they did a much better job last week getting after Felipe Franks at Arkansas. And so they need to kind of build on what they had last week, because if they're not able to get after Bo Nix, I think Auburn's going to fall right back into stride where we've seen them before. And they're going to, you know, kind of reestablish themselves as a top 15 team again, and put it on the Rebels. But I think the pass rush is what gets to stop that.
Got a team with 2 losses, another one with 3. It's not necessarily going to factor into the SEC Western Division race, but it should be a whole lot of fun and an interesting one with Ole Miss hosting Auburn. And if Gus Malzahn posts another L, the seat's going to get hot for him. There's no doubt about that. Lane Kiffin on certainly in a honeymoon stage with Ole Miss. Not that he wants to rack up L's, but he's in good shape for a long tenure there in Oxford, and they're a fun team to watch. Jake Evans, Rebel Walk, we appreciate you stopping by, man.
Mark, thank you much.